Flight attendants of Reddit, what do the passengers not know? There are sometimes body parts in the storage area near your luggage when they are flying transplants for hospitals. Also, your pets are in the same area as well. A flight attendant told me that in the event of a situation where passengers have to cover their heads, you do not lock your fingers overhead but place one hand on top of the other. If something falls on your head, you'll still have one good hand to use. I was cabin crew for 5 years, long haul only, and whilst we've all passed the exams and tests and blah 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 and have a refresher every year, you never really know how anyone will react in any kind of emergency. Firemen and police are tested on a weekly basis, but in the 5 years I was crew, there was nothing I personally experienced that put any of the proper training into use, and I'd like to think I'd not freeze or fall to pieces, but you just never know. So definitely pay a bit of attention for the 3 mins of the safety demo and figure out where the nearest exit and its alternative are, because you never know, you might end up having to help yourself. Edit. I will also wager the knowledge of flight attendants on this thread shall be turned into a Daily Mail news article for tomorrow. I'm a flight attendant. So many incidents occur on the plane that everyday passengers don't see or consider. My last flight, an elderly man accidentally ate on the floor, stepped in it, and walked on like it was nothing. Do not walk around barefoot. Pee and poop happens all over. I feel like I witness an accident regularly, in their seat or in the lav. People get nosebleeds, or their wounds open. Obviously when we land, it is thoroughly cleaned, but in flight our resources are limited. Don't change your baby's diaper on the tray table. This also happens all the time. It's unsanitary and people use the tray table to eat, put their personal things on, etc. Lastly, it is not the responsibility of a flight attendant to lift more than a less than bag. There are multiple injuries caused from flight attendants lifting heavy bags to be friendly, and then they're out of a job for months to a year, on average. If you pack it, you lift it. If it's too heavy for you, it's too heavy for us. Happy flying. Yael. I used to work with elderly people, and one of my clients was a former pilot that finally quit when he realized in the middle of a flight his dementia had progressed and he couldn't remember where he was supposed to be flying to, meaning he had been flying for a commercial airline with dementia for quite some time before that. I dated a flight attendant for a while. One thing I haven't seen mentioned is that sometimes delays are caused by flight attendants not showing up and the airline scrambling to get a backup scheduled. Like a flight attendant was partying too hard last night and decided to call off 2 hours before that $1,500 cross-ocean flight you just popped on. She loved to party, as did a lot of her co-workers, and were often hungover or out of it on flights. Even though pay was it, their union made it very hard to get fired, so call-offs were kind of no big deal. As a former aviation journalist, I can tell you a few things. Yes, on transoceanic flights there is a cabin for crew to get some sleep. No, you won't be invited in for fun times. On some newer planes there's also a hold for people who have died on the flight. No, you won't be invited in for fun times either. If you piss off the cabin crew they will fart on you. The pressure on aircraft makes you naturally gassy, and it's easy to puff one off in the face of an annoying jit while bending down to speak to someone on the opposite side of the aisle. If a meal service is on offer, go for the kosher option, so you know it was prepared that day. Probably like Louis C.K. said, that most people would freak out if they actually thought about what they were doing. To paraphrase, I mean, you're sitting in a chair, in the sky. Everyone should be going hoo-ah, hang on, the entire time. Hey flight attendants, if I bring you a bag of candy will you upgrade me? My late mom was a Delta stewardess for 33 years. She used to tell awesome PG stories, and I'm sure she had 100 more that were unfit for my innocent ears. Like any kid, I never really paid attention, but most of the ones I remember were about famous and or drunk people, or famous drunk people. One common story was about the Delta miracles. Passengers in wheelchairs would board the plane before everyone else, but they had to wait for everyone else to disembark before they could get rolled out. It is apparently common for people to be healed during mid-flight and no longer need assistance when they reach their destination. My apologies to the folks that have legit uses for one-way wheelchair trips. Let's meet in the middle and accept that there is indeed some humor to be seen here. Dash. Literally going on an international flight tomorrow for the first time in 5 years. Not sure if reading this thread is a good idea. There's really no problem with the left phalange. If you have to pull a toilet paper in the toilet first, it won't smear. I'm not a flight attendant, but I work the ramp. To elaborate on the body parts, we send full bodies on planes. Some in caskets, some not. Twice in the 7 years I've been doing this has fluid leaked out of the boxes the bodies are in and got all over the luggage. If you're sitting next to William Shatner and he has the window seat, probably gonna be a itty flight. Every once in a while I like to get out of the plane and walk around to stretch my legs. The middle guy gets the armrests, you animals. That's it. I'm going to make an app that rates airplane food and I'm calling it Snacks on a Plane. What really makes those airline peanuts so salty? Flight attendant for a European airline for the past 6 years here. I'm late to the party but I'll still chime in. Lots of passengers panic when the flight is delayed for technical reasons or when they see the maintenance guys board the aircraft. There's really no need to be. That just means that we're aware of a problem and won't budge until it has been resolved. Much better to be aware of a problem on ground than at 36,000 feet. The pilots do thorough pre-flight checks to make sure that everything is okay, and the engineers check the aircraft at the end of the day. Flying is safer now than it ever has been. No need to worry. Yes, smoking really is an issue on board. Please don't do it. We're all trained in firefighting, but it's still extremely dangerous to do so on board. Vaping on the other hand is completely harmless but forbidden anyway, purely because it may entice other passengers to light up real cigs. The only real problem with e-cigs are the lithium batteries. Many passengers see us as glorified waitresses and waiters, and to be honest we are for 70% of the trip. But we are also highly trained professionals who are able to deal with any situation on board. There are assholes on almost every flight, for sure, but they are outnumbered massively by nice people. Depending on the destination, stereotypes exist for a reason. A simple smile and politeness will get you a long way with most crew. Everyone knows what's going on under the blanket. According to my sister, who used to be a flight attendant, the answer is how to be polite and respectful. It is nearly impossible for turbulence to crash a plane, even the bad stuff. Turbulence is only dangerous because of things flying around the cabin, and that includes people not wearing seatbelts. Most accidents happen at takeoff and landing. That's why we make you do all of those things before takeoff and landing. The plane can't move like a seesaw, so seats nearest to the wings can have the least turbulence and seats farthest away will be the worst. Since the altitude of the plane, simulated to 8,000 feet, things your blood alcohol will hit you harder. We were told 1 in the air for 2 on the ground. Also, it is illegal to be intoxicated on a plane, and it is illegal for us to get you drunk. So if we cut you off, don't argue, we may serve you later if you're nice. It sounds like I was told wrong about turbulence. The back is the worst, but the front is better than over the wings. Yeah, I learned something. Pro tip: if you don't have time to read this thread, it will be summarized in a Daily Mail article tomorrow. Flight attendants reveal what airline passengers don't know. Is this limited to flight attendants? I'm a ticket agent and, boy, the stories I could tell. One thing people definitely should know is that a surprising amount of the delays that happen are due to passengers. Yep, passengers. That one guy who throws a fit because he can't take 4 ounces of liquid fruit soda and decided the gate agent was a great target to take out their wrath on caused your delay. So did that family that decided it was a great idea to bring 3 strollers and 2 car seats for their single child. That sweet old grandma who insists she doesn't need help getting onto the plane, but can't walk faster than 1 step every minute. Go to wait for her. And that last delay you had that the agent told you was due to maintenance was thanks to some guy trying to hijack the smoke alarm in the plane. There are lots of delays for other reasons, weather being a big one. Don't even say that there's no weather where you are. There isn't. But that doesn't mean there's not weather somewhere else. But you'd be amazed at how many are caused by the people around you while you're trying to board the plane. This is also part of why gate agents are so strict about cutting off loading times. Airline employees love to help when they can, but there are times when we kind of wish we could turn to the nearest wall and whack our heads against it a few times just to improve the situation. Airplanes fly broken more often than not. Dated a chick who was a FAR and had a brother that was a flight mechanic at Sky Harbor in Phoenix. They told some crazy stories about planes that flew with stuff that may or may not have been functioning properly. The duct tape game is strong. Sometimes we eat in the coffee to duck with unoriginal BuzzFeed writers. Sometimes the pilots switch on autopilot and duck in the cockpit during long flights. Count the seat backs to the closest exit. Good chance you won't be able to see in some types of accidents. Edit spelling. It's an FAA regulation to have one flight attendant per 50 passengers. Just a neat fact. I'm an aircraft dispatcher for a major airline. FARs and most airline crew get to designate a person to fly free on flights with space available. These people are referred to as SAR or space available passengers. They are often found waiting on standby and can recognize one another by the smell of anxiety. Also, attendants usually hook them up something fierce on flights knowing that they are SAR, as each attendant has his/her own SAR designee that they would like other attendants to hook up. Yes, we know when you're upset angry. When we say see you next time to certain passengers as they deplane after arrival. That's our code word for duck you. I hope you never fly with us again. I was a baggage handler for a major US carrier at a hub airport about 10 years ago. The cargo hold often carries more than just your bags. Mail, light cargo, and dead people are often flying with you. Sometimes there is too much baggage on full flights. Instead of removing baggage and delaying flights, the handler in charge will often just lie about how much weight is stowed within the baggage area. A bag marked fragile will get thrown just as hard as every other bag being quickly packed into the bin. In a year of doing that job, I never witnessed anyone steal items from within a bag or suitcase. It is possible that handlers that may have been thieves just didn't do it in front of me. The derogatory term other airport personnel use for baggage handlers is ramp rats. Nobody that works in aviation calls the paved ground area outside the tarmac. Everybody calls it the ramp. If your bag misses a connecting flight, it will often get thrown onto a different plane going to the same city. Summertime thunderstorms cause all sorts of delays and lost baggage. Maybe someone asked this, but what are ways you handle people having massive panic attacks while in flight who don't have medication for them? An airplane can fly with one engine, and if an engine catches on fire, they have the means of extinguishing it while in air. I dated a flight attendant of a major Asian airline. Apparently when they turn 28-30 or so, they're expected to get married and quit, and if you don't, they'll reassign you to a ground job. Lol, so many things. Never drink the coffee. We never clean the coffee kettles, and God knows where the water comes from. Hazmat does a really good job of cleaning up blood, vomit, piss, anything disgusting like that. They'd rather get the plane out on time than actually do a good job of cleaning. Never saw a seatbelt get changed out or washed either, even after they were puked on, pissed on, etc. None of the flight attendants have sex in the lavatories or anywhere else on the plane in our downtime. This was a question I got asked constantly, but yeah, no, we see how truly disgusting those planes are, and we have to go into those labs and see the diarrhea on the walls, piss on the floor, etc. Along with the sexy flight attendant myth. Lol. I have never felt more disgusting than when I was a flight attendant. I was constantly bloated from the air pressure, or doubled over with gas pain from holding in my farts. My feet smelled like hell, along with my shoes. I sometimes couldn't properly wash my uniform or tights on long trips. I avoided the lavatories because they were disgusting, so God knows what my required makeup looked like half of the time. When the seatbelt sign is on, stay in your seat, or at least try to. I know there are emergencies with having to pee and all that, but the most likely situation where you will get hurt on a plane is turbulence. Why do these threads always pop up while I'm waiting for a flight? Not a flight attendant and not sure if everyone knows this or not, but I once fell asleep probably before we took off and wasn't yawning or chewing during the ear popping. I woke up in excruciating ear pain. The flight attendant got me 2 styrofoam cups with warm, wet paper towels in the ends. She placed them over my ears and I felt way better. That flight attendant was awesome. You never actually leave the ground. All the windows are tiny TVS. The fart you smell was probably me, not the 300-pound man beside you. The FAA minimum crew rest on a layover is 8:45 block to block, between when the cargo or main cabin door is opened when we arrive to when the captain releases the brakes before departure. That does not include the time it takes for passengers to deplane, for us to get to the hotel van, the drive to the hotel, or the time to get back to the airport in the morning, meaning we often get less than 6 hours in our hotel room. So when you are told your flight is delayed because of crew rest, it isn't because we are being lazy. It really is because we must have mandated rest. There is a big push from the union to get this changed to a longer rest period because of safety, but I think the airlines are pushing back. I'm a flight attendant. First, I wouldn't recommend drinking coffee or hot tea from the plane. It's made with the potable water and those tanks are rarely cleaned out. None of the crew usually drink it. I had a passenger on one of my flights fill his water bottle up using the sink in the lavatory, and I stressed to him that it wasn't a good idea, but he didn't care, lol. Second, we aren't paid till the main cabin door closes, so we are ready to leave just as fast as you are. When there are delays, itching at the cabin crew isn't going to help anything. We are waiting around just like you and wanting to get back to our families as well. Third, smoking your e-cig in the lav will set off the detector. Fourth, bringing a bag of candy or treat to thank the flight crew will most likely get you free drinks or a seat upgrade. I always hook people up, lol. Former jet engine mechanic here. Those drop down masks are orange because if there's an explosive decompression, it's going to get real foggy, real fast. Went through one on a KC-135 years and years ago. Does it annoy flight attendants when people don't listen to the safety demonstration? I go on flights quite frequently but never listen to the demo. I thought about it the other day. If something were to actually happen, I would have no idea what to do. I'm flight coordinator. A lot of people don't realize that when they make jokes like "I know this plane will crash" or "security check failed to spot bomb in my backpack during boarding," it must be reported to guards, which will have a little talk with them. My department, we don't start getting paid till that door is closed, so we want you to get to your seat ASAP. We talk about you. The flamboyant FARs like to do BCs, bono checks, when we do trash. I laughed when I heard about that. I don't really know much more, or can't think of it. I just flew home and am now reading this. I assume I will very shortly be part of the 2016 statistics from any number of deadly diseases I just acquired. Flight attendant uniforms are flame retardant, but if female flight attendants wear skirts or dresses, they are usually required to wear pantyhose or tights, which are not flame retardant. I'm not a flight attendant, but this is still a pretty funny story. Last year on a flight from Buffalo to Houston, a man at the front of the plane stood up holding a cat and said, "Did anyone lose a cat?" Some lady in the back emphatically yelled, "That's where he is." The entire plane bursted out laughing. I'm a flight attendant. I'm in this job for about 9 years now and worked for 2 major German airlines. Over the years I recognized that many passengers don't know why they have to do the things we are telling them. Why do I have to open the window shades for takeoff and landing? Because during the flight we, the FAR, are inside the cabin almost the whole time and we are aware of what is happening outside. But during takeoff and landing we have to sit on our jump seats and are not able to see what's going on outside. So, if for example an engine fire occurs, we are related to the passengers telling us, "Why do I have to fold away my tray table and have to bring my seat in an upright position?" Because in case of an emergency landing, you or the passengers sitting behind you would not be able to take your bracing position correctly. Why are the FARs dimming the cabin light for takeoff and landing when it's dark outside? In case of an evacuation you have to leave the plane quite quick. If the light in the cabin would be bright, and you leave the plane during night, you would be blinded by the darkness. So we're dimming the light inside that your eyes are able to get accustomed to the darkness. These are questions I hear almost every week. I hope I was able to lighten up some things for you guys. When they come around before the landing saying, "You're trash," they really mean, "You're trash. Your family's trash." When FARs greet you as you board, They aren't just being nice. They're making sure you're not hammered or in some other way going to be a nuisance. Also, maybe don't ask me for a Coke if I'm trying to give CPR to some poor unconscious guy on the floor or calling for medical assistance or otherwise dealing with some type of emergency. I'm sorry you're thirsty, but it's just going to have to wait. Do we really need to board with our group? If I'm in group 3, I always just wait till the very end of boarding so I don't have to stand in line inside the plane and comfortably sit in the terminal area. I didn't see anyone write this unless I missed it. Both pilots and the entire crew want to get off the ground just as much as you do, even earlier if possible. So don't itch and complain at them that they're causing the delay because they're not. Especially when they are not getting paid. And I also love re-emphasizing that the captain can pretty much kick off whoever he wants whether it worries the flight attendants or not. So please be nice to all of your crew. They're just as committed to getting to the same destination as you, just as safe as you. But they don't care one way or another if you make that flight just because you're upset with something. We know it didn't really fit on your last flight. Unless we're flying on a 787 and are now trying to jam your overpacked carry-on bag into the bin on an Embraer. Not a flight attendant, but I always find it funny watching my friends squirm when I tell them there's a whole 3 bolts that hold the engines on in a 737. Here's some good answers as well. Most passengers don't know about the overhead sleeping areas for the crew on 777 and 747 aircraft. Much less where the entrance to these areas are, yet everyone walks past them every time they're on one of these planes. Till airplanes are literally Walmart. If something was gonna go down and we had to evacuate, 99 times out of 100 it will happen during taxi, takeoff, and landing. So when I tell you to put up your tray tables and seats and get your bags under the seat in front of you, please just do it. You are compromising the safety of everyone around you if you don't comply. And for the love of God, please do not try to get up and use the lav during taxi or right before we take off. Most times we tell you things for everyone's safety, not just cause it makes us feel good or something. Please just comply the first time you are asked. Sticking your finger in a too fizzy Coke will subside the bubbles faster. Source: married to a former flight attendant who did it all the time to passenger drinks. And continues to do it to this day, much to my consternation. If those passengers only knew. 1. We can't strike without congressional approval. That isn't ever going to happen, leading to a stall in our quality of life. 2. It is perfectly legal to only give flight attendants 8 hours between getting off the plane to getting back on it. 3. We travel for free domestically on all airlines. 4. A lot of girl files do end up dating pilots. 5. Most pilots are so used to being in control that they don't listen to anyone else. That causes safety issues and is the biggest risk in aviation today in my opinion. 6. Flight attendants that leave the US to go to Emirates, Qatar, or Etihad have a curfew when they're home. 7. Planes are disgusting. Don't touch anything. 8. They lied to you about the extra precautions during the Ebola outbreak. 9. Everyone is hiring big time. Delta is seen as most desirable due to work conditions. If you go to United you will have an on-call schedule for the first 10 years of your career minimum. 10. The city you're based in changes the whole culture at work. You can tell how a co-worker is going to behave just on where they are based. 11. I work at what is considered the worst airline, Spirit, and we have the youngest flight attendants, best health insurance, easiest standby odds, and most fun. Hoda thunk. Edit. Also, if your plane goes down in the ocean you better hope the impact kills you. Even if you make it on a raft you'll never be found. From my dad, who has been a flight attendant for 30 years. What passengers don't know is that they are there for safety, not service. And that the briefing they do before flight is all about safety.